So today I've got a very interesting guest. I have a Mac OS user, although I would say he's not your typical Mac OS user. He's not one of these, Starbucks enthusiasts that sit around a Starbucks drinking their lattes on their MacBook and, surfing Facebook and things like that. He's actually a power user. He's more of a Linux user, even though he uses Mac OS. Like he's got that mentality. He uses a lot of cool software, a lot of open source software. I know he's a big fan of NeoVim. This is Linkarzu is the channel name, your actual name, Christian. Hope you don't mind me sharing that, but I think most of your fans know who you are. So Christian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey DT, really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So, like you said, I'm a macOS user because I got used to macOS when I was in my previous company. And I've been using it for, quite a few years. I don't know, maybe around 6 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was a Windows user, right? But like you said, I don't use macOS the regular way. I'm a big NeoVim fan.
Right.
That's what I spend most of my time in, and in the terminal as well. Also Linux, but only on servers, no desktop environment, just servers basically.
And I hope I didn't offend you if you are a fan of Starbucks. So
No, I'm not.
That's where you see all the Mac fanboys, right? They're hanging out at the Starbucks, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Mac OS image is bad, man. But right. I'm kind of different. I don't know. That's why I invited you to my channel because.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those watching this video here, I appeared on Christian's channel probably a week or two ago by the time you guys watch this video. And we had a lovely conversation about various Linuxy topics. Today, obviously, we're going to dive a little bit more in what you do on your computer rather than what I do on mine. Yep. But I do know that obviously you have a YouTube channel and it's very focused on software, especially productivity kinds of tools, IDEs, note-taking, things like that. You're trying to make videos on how to actually do real work on a computer. And do you have a background in tech? Do you tech-related jobs or, how did you get into this?
Yep. I started, as a network engineer, basically quite a few years ago. I got a few certifications. CCNA is a Cisco certification. CCNP is another Cisco certification. It's more like on the professional side of things. And some other vendor certifications as well. Kubernetes certification. So I started as a network engineer. And then I worked as a site reliability engineer in my previous company, monitoring engineer, and somewhat of a DevOps engineer for some time before I was let go. Okay. And I just decided I use the computer differently. I don't see a lot of tutorials for the stuff that I do in the computer, so I just wanted to share them basically.
Specifically what you do as far as a desktop computer. You don't see a lot of Yeah, I find that the case with me as well, right? Most desktop computer users are not into really nerdy kinds of things that folks like you and me are into. Obviously, you mentioned you got a background as far as being a network admin. I'm assuming a lot of that was done with Linux servers. Would that be where you were exposed to Linux, or were you doing that on, other operating systems?
There, I was mainly exposed to networking equipment, routers, switches, basically, right? Cisco, Juniper stuff. But when I was working as a site reliability engineer, I was exposed to Linux a lot.
You do anything with any of the BSD operating systems, and as far as servers? I ask because Mac OS obviously has some roots with FreeBSD in particular.
I think this router, a firewall, is called OpenSense. I'm not sure if it's BSD based or something like that. I don't quite remember.
It is. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100%. I don't think it's Linux based though.
Yeah, I think FreeBSD it says here. That's the only thing basically, that OpenSense router, but nothing else.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of that is BSD. A lot of like routing equipment things, typically running BSD as an operating system. So when did you start making content on YouTube?
Oh, I started January last year. I remember it quite well because it was my birthday. I recorded 8 videos that I added to a playlist, man, they
Mhm.
were horrible. The audio sucks.
Right.
It's bad. The quality, I don't know.
So, so people should go back and watch those, right?
uh, they're still
So,
relevant. They're still
yeah,
useful, but I'm not like the proudest of those, we could say. But
yeah,
yeah, a year ago, a little bit over a year ago
no,
now.
that's good. Yeah, if you've been sticking with YouTube for that long, I would say you have, there's a certain wall that some creators reach as far as the ones that are going to stick around. Typically, they'll go hard at it for a few months at most, and then they'll realize, hey man, this is tough making videos, yeah. Right? And they like, hey, I'm done. I'm checking out, right? So if you've been at it for over a year, yeah, you're going to be around probably for the foreseeable future.
It did happen to me, because like 3 months after I started, I was like, man, there's just a few people watching, just a few subscribers.
Sure.
I'm done with this. And I stopped and I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I stopped for like 3 months, but then I decided to continue, and here I am,
It is tough when you put in all that work and then nobody watches the video, especially if it's a video that you put a lot of time and effort in. I've learned with my experience, some of the videos I spend the most time working on that require several hours, or in some cases multiple days of work on my part, get the least amount of views. And some of the things that I throw up, like seriously, I've got one video of mine. It's a 90-second video. It required like very low effort amounts of editing. Like it was probably the quickest thing I've ever put together in the history of my channel, and it's got the most views on my channel. So that's the way it goes, right? You can't. Nobody knows about the YouTube algorithm other than YouTube, right? Who knows what goes into that thing? I know people try to game it. You can't game it. Yeah. Whatever they decide to push, they push. So
I prepared, with 3 other YouTubers, Josh Medeski, Joshua Blaze, and Lazar Nikolov. They're quite a little bit big, It was a 4-stream call, the 4 of us sharing stuff and our YouTube journeys. And I was like, man, this is going to be a great video. It was not. Nobody watched it, basically. So.
No. Well, yeah, that's another thing is, sometimes, is that typically the content you do is like collaborative videos with other people? Is that what you primarily do?
I started doing that like a couple months ago, interviews,
Okay.
And those do good. Some of them do good. Some of them don't. So I guess it depends on the guest, or I don't know what it depends on.
I imagine, but I also, in my own experience, I imagine like the stuff you do alone on camera, especially the tutorial kind of stuff, probably does much better.
Yeah. It does. Yep.
Yeah, I found that to be the case with a lot of my stuff as well. Do you script your videos as far as, do you actually write out everything you're going to say, or ever read from a teleprompter or anything like that?
No, I don't. I have a little app that I put on the right-hand side of my screen. I called it Skitty Notes. Just gave it a name because it's basically the Kitty terminal, and I just wanted sticky notes. So I just add the bullet points there of what I want to touch in the video, and then I just improvise. But I follow those bullet points. I don't script them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I can't read from a script. It just doesn't sound natural when I'm reading on camera. I will, make a quick little outline of something if it's something that I need to stay on topic, so I'll have some bullet points that I make sure I hit. But as far as writing out the actual words I'm going to say, it just comes across as fake, and not genuine. So for me, many of my videos, especially the ones where I just rant about something, I don't script at all. I just turn on the camera and start talking, and those typically work out much better than me trying to read. Because you can get teleprompter apps, obviously, on Mac and Linux and Windows, but trying to read from those things, it's always hard because you're staring at text, and it's kind of hard to stare at the text and stare at the camera, even though you're putting the camera and the teleprompter in the same place. You can still tell somebody is staring at that damn teleprompter.
You can look at their eyes. You can follow their eyes, and you're like, oh, he's reading.
Yeah. I was never able to do that. Before we jump into some of the hardcore tech discussion, a little lighter discussion, I'm going to take this page out of your book here because you asked me about favorite music, specifically favorite bands. You got a couple of favorite bands you want to share, or just musical artists in general?
Man, I was not prepared for this.
And I know. I wasn't prepared when you asked me, even though you probably sent me some notes about it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So the thing with me and music right now is that
Quit
I just
stalling.
don't.
Just say Taylor Swift. Come on.
No, that's another guest that I had. He said Taylor Swift, and I was like,
No, he didn't.
yeah, I was a little bit surprised. He's quite young, but in
Obviously.
my early days, I used to do a lot of metal, power metal, and heavy metal, basically. I don't do that anymore because I changed. I used to do a lot of crazy stuff as well with my life, stuff that you're not supposed to do. I don't do that anymore at all. So now I just listen to jazz, classical music. A
Yeah.
band that I like a lot, that I found and that I enjoy a lot is Prep, Prep. I don't know, just check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna like them, but yeah, I would say that one is the last one that I found. Stick Figure is another band that I did like a lot. I don't know, it's some sort of reggae or stuff like that,
Yeah.
experimental reggae. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what it
like
is.
reggae. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned jazz. Obviously, I'm a trombone player. I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked the other day. I live in Louisiana as well. And people often ask me, hey, you're a trombone player that lives in Louisiana. You must like jazz. And I was like, no, don't really. I mean, I like jazz, but I'm not a jazz musician myself. I've played in a couple of jazz bands, but yeah. People
just like
always
to keep-
assume.
Oh, that you like jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to keep using music in the background. I don't like to be, in silence. So I just tell Alexa to play something. It
Right.
always plays the same song. I'm tired of it, but whatever. I just want to have something playing in the background.
Well, you probably know the next question, obviously. Favorite movie or movies, if you don't want to stick to just one.
Oh, man. Favorite
Yeah, that was a
movie,
hard one for me,
movies.
too. That tripped me up.
I have to think for a little while because I have quite a few.
What kind of movies you like? As far as genres, you like
I like
action,
going
comedy?
into no action. I don't like those too much. I like going into this app called Movie. It's for independent films, so films that have been into different awards, type of stuff like that. So independent movies I like a lot. There's one that is pretty crazy, actually pretty good. It's called Old Boy, but it's the Korean version because they did a remake, in the US. Something happened. They did a remake. No, that's not the one. I'm talking about Old Boy, the Korean version. I think it's
Okay.
Korean. That's pretty good.
A lot of the stuff that comes out of Korea is pretty good. They do great horror movies. Right?
Yeah.
All the Asian countries, they put out great
Yeah.
horror movies. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I introduced you as a Mac OS user, but I'm still going to ask you, what OS are you using and why are you using that OS?
So Mac OS for sure. And the only reason is because I got used to it at the previous company. I hadn't used Mac OS before, but at jobs, you're not given a choice sometimes,
Right.
For customer service and all that stuff, they just give Windows, right? So just use Windows. But if you're in different positions, they're gonna give you a Mac, and it's like, okay, here's a Mac, use it. So it was like, okay, I'll try to get used to this thing. I got used to it, and I just wanted to do more. I found a window manager, and I just customized it to my liking. Got so used to it, and I'm still there. I'm thinking about Linux, not fully switching, but I just want to explore, Linux as well. But as of now, Mac OS completely.
Well, I can understand jobs. Like I've had jobs, obviously. None of them had Linux computers, right? It was all
Yeah.
Windows all the time. The last job I had, it literally was nothing but Microsoft everything. I had to run Windows on all the machines. I ran Windows, I think Windows Server 2007 or some old Windows Server installation. We all used Outlook Mail.
Yeah.
And what's the Microsoft Cloud syncing thing? It was just, I had to have all that crap on my mobile device. And, I was glad to leave that job because that was too much Microsoft in my life. I wanted some of that gone. I noticed, though, when you mentioned, you may move to Linux at some point, you try out Linux. I noticed you didn't mention that you missed Windows.
No, not at all.
No.
I'm against Windows. I have used Windows recently, because I installed it in VMs. One of my first videos was how to install Windows via the network. It's in a tool called NetBoots XYZ. So how to install Windows without a USB key, right? So just from the network. And I'm highly experienced with Windows, we could say, but I don't like the operating system at all. No, I don't miss
Right.
it. I'm not planning on going back. Well, I will be starting a job soon, and guess what operating system I will be forced to
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
Windows.
Of course.
So
Yeah. Unfortunately, when it comes to this is the biggest hurdle is when it comes to jobs and schools, universities. Sometimes you are given a machine or you're told to go buy a certain machine with a certain operating system. Obviously, on college campuses, especially MacBooks, they push MacBooks. These days, with younger children, it's all Chromebooks.
yeah.
Right. That's what everybody's running. So you don't really have a lot of choice, unfortunately, till you get, I guess, older and a little bit more independent, right? Then you can run whatever you want. But for a while, yeah, you just whatever you're told to run, you have to run.
Yeah, and I run Mac OS by choice now, because the last computer that I bought is my laptop.
Yeah.
I like the operating system, so I just decided it's gonna be my main operating system right now.
Yeah.
So I was forced to it, but then I stayed.
Yeah. And you could always dual boot, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of your software choices and how you use things. So I really wanted to focus on, some of your productivity as far as your workflow. So that's what people typically want to know when it comes to how you use a desktop operating system, especially one that's very customized. So let's start with your text editor or IDE of choice.
Yep. My text editor is NeoVim. Would you like me to share my screen or not yet?
Yeah, go ahead and share your
later.
screen. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Okay. NeoVim, I just named my config NeoBean. I like eating beans. No, that's not how. Well,
Right.
I do like eating beans, but the name came because of my wife. I talked to her about NeoVim for years, and she didn't even know how the name was written. She thought it was NeoBeam as a sunbeam, So just named my config NeoBean. But yeah, that's my main editor. Before that, I was using VS Code. I don't remember how I ended up in NeoVim. I was doing a lot of scripting back in the day before AI was a thing, in MikroTik routers. I used VS Code. So one day I decided I want to try NeoVim instead of VS Code. And I just ended up in NeoVim. That's what I've been using ever since.
Yeah, cool. And you got your dashboard that loads up first. Very Emacs like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you've got it very highly customized. How long is your NeoVim config? Do you know offhand roughly the lines of code?
If I open the keymaps.lua file, this is only where I have my keymaps configured, and I go to the bottom of the file. That just the keymaps is 4,000 lines, but I have a lot of stuff there, and that's just the keymaps, but I use a distribution. I don't use my own config. I'm planning on maybe, going with the distribution, but
yeah. So you say you don't use a distribution. This is your own custom config,
no,
right?
I do use a distribution.
Okay.
I use LazyVim. Yeah.
LazyVim. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I know LazyVim. So that's probably why the dashboard was already installed.
Yeah, it already comes. Yeah.
And of course, it's going to have all your cool tools like the file manager and the project nerd tree and things like that, right?
The one that I use is this cold file snacks picker, right? So to open different files, I just do double space, which is liter space, right? And search for my files here. Let's say that I want to open which file that I open. Let's see, my Ghosty configuration file, right? So I just type here, it opens it. To switch between the last two files, I do backspace, I think it is, to just switch between the last two. One of the things that I like about this picker a lot, let me go to a different project here, and I'm just going to show you something. This test markdown. You can preview images here, right?
Of course.
ABIF.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so in the picker.
And of course, the image support, that is because your terminal emulator, Ghosty, has image support, right? Okay.
Has image support. Yeah. So that is one way that I navigate, between if I need to search for a file. I also have this other file explorer. It's called mini.files. It gives you a preview of the file, right? Because sometimes you just need to quickly see, okay,
Sure.
what is the
Yep.
file that I'm going to be working on. So those I would say are the tools that I use the most. Well, I use a lot of plugins in NeoVim, but
Mhm. Now, what about note taking? Are you a big note taker? Me personally, I am not, but I know a lot of people that is like it dominates everything they do as far as taking notes all the
yep,
time.
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yep, I have this other repo. I actually used to take notes in Obsidian for quite a long time, right?
Okay.
I love the tool, but when I started using NeoVim, I migrated everything to NeoVim. There was no ability to view images. Well, there was, but it was kind of complicated to view images inside NeoVim. And I had that in Obsidian. So I, watched the video, implemented it. If I want to paste an image into NeoVim, I do it, and it automatically converts it to AVIF, right? So
All
that's
right.
another plugin. I do everything basically in Vim. I do Markdown, but everyone, including you, have
Mhm.
been trying to convince me to move to org mode and Emacs, and I do see the power, man. You remember we talked about the headings, different
Yep.
sizes for the headings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing with org mode is so incredible because like I only know like 5% of what org mode can do because it's that deep. Like you can build tables, and those tables can act as spreadsheets. Calculating formulas. Like the stuff I would never get into. Like there's so much stuff you can do with it
Yeah.
that it really is. Like I could seriously, if I wanted to, dedicate my entire YouTube channel to just talking about org mode and the things that org mode can do. Right? It's yeah. So that's why it has so many, I guess, fanatical fans. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh.
seems like a really wonderful tool, and I want to give it a try for my notes, but
Mhm.
the way that I usually take notes, you're going to notice here that it says Obsidian main right
Mhm.
here. That is basically the Tmux session because I'm a huge Tmux user, right? So I switch between sessions quite fast. If I just tap the shift key on my keyboard, if I just tap it, it's going
Mhm.
to take me back to the other Tmux session that I was on, which is my dot files, right? So I just keep the name of the session there all the time. So that way I just switch between sessions. And the way that I do notes in NeoVim is, for example, if I open one of these files, here I'm in my notes, by 9, for example, by 9. So this is what I do. I just fold headings, unfold stuff, and just to remember, because I'm not gonna remember about all this stuff in 5 months. So that's basically the reason why I take notes if I need to implement something in the future, just
Mhm.
to refresh that quite easily.
Yeah, I do something similar. Even though I said I'm not a big note taker. Like I'm not somebody that's writing notes every single day, but sometimes I will do things on a computer, certain commands that I know I'll need for this particular problem I just encountered in the future, and I'll never remember how to fix
Yeah.
that problem again. I do actually have an org directory where I keep a bunch of small little org files for various tech related things.
Yeah, but the way that you manage your config, which is what the literate config, I guess you don't need to take a lot of notes because you document your code. So it's basically
Right.
like taking notes in your code, right?
Yeah, I can write plain text that's not part of source code that gets written anywhere. You don't have to have source code in an org document anyway. It's just like Markdown. Like you can just write in org mode. Like if you were, I don't know, a creative writer, or you wanted to, I don't know, write a novel or something, right? You can write things in org mode, and of course, then it has the ability to export it into many different doc formats. Pandoc can be tied into it as well, to where you can convert your org doc to HTML or PDF or whatever format. ODT or whatever LibreOffice use, the open document format, a million different things you can export to. Now, the next question I want to ask you, because anybody looking at your desktop right now is going to be wondering about the window manager. Obviously, you're on Mac OS, but this is not your typical Mac OS desktop.
Yep, that is correct. There's more than 2 options at the moment, but I would consider that there's 2 big options. If you're a power user and want to try out Mac OS, you can go with Aerospace is one of them, and Yabai is the other one, right? So Aerospace is newer, gives you a lot of cool features, but the one that I use is Yabai. I've been using Yabai since the beginning. I'm used to it. The way that I use it is in stack mode. I know that everyone is fan of tiles, right? But I don't like tiles at all. So if you notice, I just keep a single application on the screen at a time. Well, besides this other application that I have on the right, which is Kitty Notes, the one that I was talking to you about, but other than that, I only have this main screen here, my terminal, browser, whatever other application I open is just going to open in this specific section, and
Sure.
the other small app is always going to be there on the right, which is for my notes.
So you just stick strictly to the stacking layout. You never switch over to a tiling layout or anything else?
No.
It's just
No,
always
no.
this? Okay.
Always stacking layout. Yeah, and I use a single monitor as well, Before that, I used to have a 55-inch 4K TV as a monitor. I used to have a lot of space. My apps were arranged in different places, and I thought I was really effective and fast, but man, no. I was really slow. So I just decided to go with one monitor, one application on the screen at a time. I got used to it, which means that I have to be very efficient with my keyboard. So I use my keyboard basically for everything, to switch between apps, to switch between Tmux sessions as well. Basically everything, even the OBS scenes, I switch them with my keyboard because that's one of the huge, I would say, points or features, I don't know how to call it, in my setup, the keyboard mapping or mapper that I use.
And Christian, do you use any tools for file syncing? As far as syncing between multiple devices, maybe your computer and phone or multiple computers?
Actually, the only tool that I use is I have a home lab and I have a storage server that I use, but
Sure.
I just use it as a Samba server, and I have 3 different storage servers. Basically, you can see them here, storage 1, 2, 3. I can lose one of them, and my storage keeps working. For that, I use a cluster, But other than that, no. For my phone, I just push all my notes to GitHub, and on my phone, I just use the GitHub mobile app in case that I need to view the notes, basically, or if I would need to edit a note, I do it in the mobile app on GitHub.
No, okay. Very cool. Do you use a password manager at all?
Yep, I use 1Password. It's my password manager. Yep.
Last one I'm going to ask is your browser of choice, and please tell us all it's not Safari.
No, it's not Safari. It's not a good browser. So I have experimented with all of them. I used Brave for a long time. The only problem that I had with Brave is that the sidebar here, I don't know, it was not perfect. I use vertical tabs. I don't like keeping a lot of tabs.
Right.
And since I use Tmux, I like managing stuff vertically, right? So all my different sessions in Tmux, if I open a new session, I just got used to having stuff here vertically. I wanted to have the same in my browser. So I just want to have the tabs vertically. It looks like Zen. I modified it, so that, looks a little bit more like Zen. And so far it's been great.
Yeah, I played around a little bit with the Zen browser. It's kind of neat for what it is. For me, I don't use vertical tabs, so that's why I'm not using Zen, right? But I've never been a vertical tab guy. But for those that love vertical tabs, Zen's great. Obviously, Vivaldi works great too. I will say Brave's vertical tabs aren't the greatest, probably for those that like vertical tabs. And that's coming from me, again, somebody that's not a vertical tab user at all. But that feature in Brave is actually rather new. I think they've only added vertical tabs. It's only been around about a year or so, but maybe it'll get better at some point.
Yeah. Which one do you use?
I use Brave.
Brave? Okay. Yeah. Brave is... I would be using Brave if it was not because of that, because I cannot hide it. If I just hide them here, it stays there. There's a little sidebar that stays there.
In Brave?
In Brave, yeah. And I used to manage transparency in Yabai because the window manager in macOS allows you to manage transparency. So you can set any app transparent if you want. So Brave has a weird issue, like a Z-index issue, in which the sidebar, you could still see it. I could see it behind my terminal. Only the sidebar, nothing else. So
yeah, I've come across that bug in a few different apps over the years where, yeah, when you're stacking windows on top of it, yeah, the transparency gets all wonky where all of a sudden one's not transparent anymore.
Yeah, let me just show you something real quick. I have this color scheme selector in macOS, and I have a video about that as well. So I just bring up an FCF menu here. I have a keyboard shortcut, brings this up, and I have a few colors. Let's say that I want to choose one of these. I'm just going to choose this minty lemon. Just gonna hit enter here. You're gonna notice that it's just going to apply the colors everywhere. I don't know why that hideous background is chosen. That's a macOS background, but that's not the one that I set. I just need to fix that. It's a different background, the one that I'm supposed to use. So modifies the color in Sketchy Bar, which is the bar at the top. In NeoVim, in my terminal, even if I come here and open something like BTOP, for example, well, right now it's gonna change because I reloaded my CSHRC configuration file, but the colors are basically applied everywhere, so that's something.
I do something very similar with a script that I wrote. That's actually it's actually part of DTOS, the Linux distribution I've been working on, where a Rofi menu comes up. You choose one of 10 color schemes, and then it applies that color scheme to
everywhere.
The terminal, to Emacs, to my window manager, to various other things that have color theming, like the notification system and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
so
cool.
It stays coherent, right?
Yeah. Just so you can change everything all in one go instead of having to go change 8 different things.
Yeah, that's exactly why I did it as well. But yep.
And this is a script that you wrote, this color scheme selector?
Yep. It's a video that I created. Color scheme selector works on Linux as well because it's just bash scripts, that replace the actual files, So
exactly. Yeah. All right. Very cool. And the shell, by the way, what shell do you use?
Oh, I use CSH. The C shell.
Standard on Mac OS. I figured, but I wasn't positive if you were using something a little stranger.
No. I just use CSH. And I just switched all my servers to CSH to be compatible. I don't want to be in bash in some and CSH in others. So everything CSH for now. You use Fish, right?
I do. Yeah. On all my machines, as far as the user shell, the default user shell is Fish. But of course, I keep bash on the system. I script everything I do in bash. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now that you've shared a little bit of the desktop, all the apps you use, you look more kind of like those of us that use Linux and use tiling window managers, and we love hanging out in terminals all the time, just using shell utilities and bash scripting. You strike me more of would you call yourself a minimalist, the way you use your computer, or is that not the way you think about things?
Well, people in the comments in YouTube always tell me that, I have a lot of bloat. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, because I have several different plugins in NeoVim that make my life easier. And if there's an application that is going to make my life easier, I install it. I don't try to keep things minimal. Of course, I'm not just going to install an app just for installing it, but yeah, I like to keep my setup as simple as possible. But if I need an app or a plugin that is going to make my life easier, if it's paid or not, I'm going to install it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that some of the NeoVim people said your NeoVim config is bloat, because I have noticed you get some of this with Emacs, maybe other editors as well, that people have to configure. Is if it's too long, the config, you got too much stuff installed and too many plugins, it takes half a second to load or whatever. It's bloat, right?
Yeah.
And especially NeoVim is probably the one I've noticed that the most, as far as people reacting that way. I don't know what it is about that community, but I have actually seen some configs and tested some configs of NeoVim that were like thousands of lines long with a lot of stuff installed, and it does slow it down. Like some of them, it can get really slow depending on what you've got going on. Especially when you start adding like some of the LSP stuff, any of those kinds of tools can really drag performance down. But that's with all IDEs. It's the same way with Emacs. If I turned all that stuff on, it would run at a snail's pace. VS Code, I'm sure, is the same way. I've never used VS Code, but I bet, the more stuff you enable in it, as far as plugins, it probably bogs it down a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
How is Vim emulation in VS Code, by the way? I don't know if it's something you played with.
Mm, yeah, I even created a color scheme in VS Code, because I just wanted to share the way that I um, do note taking in NeoVim. And my coworkers, all of them used VS Code. One of them, and I needed to teach them, okay, so you're gonna use Prettier. I showed them how to install Prettier, Marksman, which is an LSP, and you can use it in VS Code as well. VS Code NeoVim, that's the one that I use to jump around different nodes in NeoVim, nodes in different folders, we could say. So I tried Vim emulation in VS Code. I don't know. It's not bad, but I'm not a big fan.
That's why I wanted to ask, because people have asked me about it as far as, hey man, everybody uses VS Code, quit using Emacs or whatever, everybody's on VS Code. You'll be fine there because it has Vim emulation. You already use the Vim key bindings, and every single text editor I've ever used that said it had Vim emulation sucked. It doesn't have a fraction of the key bindings and all. The only one that actually has real Vim emulation, obviously, is Emacs. And even there is some weird, you get into some weird kind of niche use cases where, certain things that you can do in Vim aren't really there in Emacs. But you really have to search for that stuff. For the most part, like 99% of it is there. But even if it's stuff that's not there, I mean, Emacs can still do the stuff. It just would use different key bindings and,
Yeah, and that happened to me with Obsidian. That was the tool that I used for note taking. I enabled Vim. Yeah, it does have Vim, but once you try the power of NeoVim, all the stuff that I could do, all the different key maps, I didn't have them in Obsidian. So Obsidian started feeling like not enough anymore. So I was like, man, I cannot have all of the power that I have in NeoVim and Obsidian. So I just decided to ditch Obsidian completely and just use NeoVim for my nodes altogether.
Do you ever find yourself outside of NeoVim or other programs that use Vim-like bindings? Do you ever like my email client? I'm always like :W and hitting I over and over again, or escape over. Like, wait, this isn't Vim, right?
Yeah, I try to see if it has Vim bindings, everything that I use. That's why I came up with the Sticky Notes app that you saw on the right hand side, because I was looking for a Sticky Notes app that had Vim bindings, and there was none. All of them. Well, there probably are some, but they don't give me the full power that I need. What I have in NeoVim. So, I'm basically running NeoVim there.
Yeah, I want HJKL and everything.
Yeah. For sure. Yep.
Hell, my first person shooter games, instead of the WASD, could I map that to HJKL?
And when you're forced to use stuff like Word, Excel, man, you suffer. When you're forced to type something in Word, it's like, I don't know. It's painful.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you probably do this too. If you're going to write something lengthy, you're going to do it in NeoVim. And then you just paste it into Word later and format it. But actual write it out, and because that's what I did for everything. Anything that's more than a few sentences, I'm going to write it in Emacs, and then I'll paste it into the word processor. Right.
I used to do that in Slack all the time. When I needed to send a long message, I used just to write it in NeoVim in my daily notes, cut it, paste it in Slack, and it was formatted nicely and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't. I always enable Markdown support wherever I can, because Slack has Markdown support, so I just could copy and paste my Markdown into Slack, and it would work.
What about hardware? Obviously, you're a Mac user, but let's talk about peripherals. Let's start with the keyboard.
The keyboard.
Are you a keyboard guy, or like you're always buying new keyboards? Are you one of those folks?
No, just one. No, I cannot afford a lot of keyboards. The one that I'm using right now.
Yeah, it's an expensive hobby. Oh yeah.
The Glove 80.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. You got your split keyboard.
Yeah,
I like it.
Split keyboard.
Once you go with a split keyboard, because I've got the Moonlander here in front of me from ZSA. I've used a variety of split keyboards. You can't go back to a normal keyboard. You really can't, because you do notice it is better for you. I don't know if you've noticed as far as just...
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It is. And I switched to a split because I was having a lot of forearm pain here because the the Magic Keyboard in Mac OS, man, that's my favorite keyboard, the Magic Keyboard, because I could type so fast in that thing. I was really fast, but it's small and your fingers are like this
Yeah, it's too
the whole day.
because your shoulders are right.
Yeah. So I had to let it go. Now I'm on the Glove 80. I have to try different switches because I don't like the ones that I have too much, but it's way better. I cannot go back to a regular keyboard. And I had that period of time, in which I couldn't type on my laptop keyboard. Once I got used to the split keyboard, I couldn't type. I'm getting used to typing in the laptop keyboard. I'm used to it again, I think, but there's a period of time in which you get not used to it anymore.
I ran into the same issue where I had a job that, obviously they've got Windows computers, they got normal keyboards, but at home I was using all these split keyboards. I'd go to the job and it would always take me, it wouldn't take me long. It'd take me 10 minutes of typing on that keyboard to where, okay, mentally, I kind of remember where everything's at. And then when I get home, it would take me the same 5 or 10 minutes to remember, okay, I'm not on that keyboard. But the more I did it every day, the quicker it became to where I could switch between the two. But at first, it was painful.
Yeah, for sure.
What about the mouse? Do you use any exotic mice? For me, I've been using trackballs for the last few years, mainly because of wrist pain of using a traditional mouse, and it made a gigantic difference. I don't know if you play around with different styles of mice.
I did. I switched to an MX Vertical mouse, The reason why I did it is because it allowed me to connect it to my 2 different computers, my laptop and my Mac Mini. So I had a script that switched keyboard, mouse, and monitor between the 2 computers, right? Yeah. So all the 3 devices, I could switch them. So I used that MX Vertical mouse for 5-6 months, but then my hands started hurting. I don't know why. I'm not used to vertical mice, I think.
I've never used that one myself, but a lot of people seem to be fans of it.
Yeah. It started out well. I loved it, but then my hands started, I had pain. So I just had to go back to the Apple hideous Magic Mouse. Everyone hates it.
Yeah, that thing is so small. That probably isn't too bad. I've noticed any mouse where you're like this all the time. That's really, man, that's rough on your hands or your wrists, especially. Well, what are your thoughts on, you mentioned that you want to play around a little bit with Linux. You've messed with Linux in the past. I know, obviously, you are already a figure in the open source software community because you play around with open source tools like NeoVim. I'm sure you've probably interacted with their community, possibly made pull requests and things like that. And how is I'll word this in 2 different ways. How is the Linux community that you've interacted with? And how is just the general open source software community? Because, if somebody's going to talk bad about them, I'd rather it be you than me. So,
because I'm not too open sourcey.
Right.
Yeah. So, man,
I know there's toxic elements in the community, so I was just going to throw that out there. Right. So.
I share my videos in Reddit, my NeoVim videos in Reddit, and I have quite some fans there. A lot of them are upvoted, like 100, 200, 300 upvotes.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, but
is this the NeoVim subreddit that you're?
The NeoVim subreddit.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen that subreddit. I've seen the Emacs subreddit. I've seen the Bash subreddit. I've seen some places where you share things you're doing, and sometimes people react in a way.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And the NeoVim subreddit, I don't know, people just lose it sometimes. They tell you that you have a lot of bloat, and that's a lot of plugins that you shouldn't be using and stuff like that, so
but Reddit's a special place,
Yeah.
Reddit
anonymous accounts. And that it's easier with an anonymous account, right? So
yeah. I mean, I found Reddit. I know some people are going to think this is crazy, but even 4chan is a better place than Reddit, just because on 4chan, everybody's an a-hole, but it's expected. Where Reddit, everybody's an a-hole, but pretends like they're not, right?
Yeah. And I have posted in the Emacs community, and folks there are pretty calm. No one is like crazy. I don't know, maybe the NeoVim community has too many people, and I don't know, people that like commenting. I don't know what happens, but the NeoVim Reddit community is not that friendly.
When you get a community like a subreddit that has a lot of members, especially one that grows quickly, sometimes it will outgrow like the moderation team. It's hard to keep things under control. And then the trolls basically realize, hey, nobody's paying attention. This is free reign. I can do whatever I want. So you see the same thing in all kinds of web forums and chat rooms, Discord especially. Why I don't hang out on Discord, because most of Discord is a mess.
Oh yeah, I have a Discord server as well. Not a lot of people, like 200, so it's manageable.
I'm sure it's a friendly group then. One final area I want to get into, just because it's more general tech related, but I have thoughts, and I bet you have thoughts, and I know the people watching this video are going to have very strong reactions when I ask this. What do you think about AI, and how do you use AI in your daily workflow?
AI, I do use it, but I don't trust it too much. When it all started, it was like amazing, it was like magic. It felt awesome. And it was like, what the hell is this? And why is it solving my stuff?
Mm-hmm. So ChatGPT was the greatest thing.
ChatGPT, right? Yeah. The only one that I use is ChatGPT. I tried Copilot, which is the Microsoft thingy. I could use it in NeoVim. It's not NeoVim's fault or the NeoVim plugin's fault. It's just Copilot itself sucked, And I was like, this thing doesn't work. I just uninstalled it. And if I need to use AI, I'm not going to ask questions that I Google stuff first. I trust Stack Overflow more than ChatGPT, because I find a lot of answers in Stack Overflow explanations, and people that have had the issue in the past. I still find a lot of answers there, even though ChatGPT is trained in all that data. But I Google first, and if I don't find it, I will probably ask the AI, but I don't trust it. I review and test everything that it gives back, because sometimes it makes no sense at all.
One of the things I've noticed with Google search, since you brought it up, now that they're integrating some of their Gemini results.
Yeah, the first result, Have you noticed
that just in general, I think Google's search results have gotten a lot worse recently? Yeah. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just imagining things. I don't know.
Yeah, because the first result that you get is that Gemini thing, the AI thing.
It's obvious that's an AI answer, but still, even just the results down below, I don't know. But I agree, Stack Overflow. Like, if you just go to Stack Overflow, if you got any kind of like programming kind of questions, tech-related kind of questions, Stack Overflow is just a treasure trove of information.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on AI? I didn't cover that in our conversation. Like, what are your thoughts there?
I like it. As far as, I think it's neat technology. The reason I asked it, and I thought it would be a hot topic, and it will be in the comments, although not because of you, because you answered the way a lot of the Linux and free and open source software community would answer, is they don't trust it at all. They have they don't even want you to talk about it. Don't bring up AI, right?
No, but I use it, I do use it, but I just don't trust it. I just review everything that it does, because it's like,
And because of the free and open source nature of our operating systems with the Linux distros, there's a very strong reaction when any distro introduces any AI related tooling, like a really strong reaction to it. So for me, I think it's neat technology. As a fan of open source software, I like some of the open source AI stuff. I've played around a lot with Llama from Meta, and it's pretty good. I've played around with Ollama, which is a command line implementation that you can run in the terminal. There is an Emacs plugin called eLlama that has Llama in the, it's basically a front end to Ollama in Emacs. You just choose whatever large language model you want, and you can, type your question, and then it spits it out in an Emacs buffer. And it's neat. I think it's really neat, and I do play around with this stuff all the time. The Brave browser has their Leo chat assistant. I have it keybinded to just bring up that Leo split, and I can ask it a question, whatever. I think in some ways it's like the greatest thing ever, and I think in some ways it's horrible in that sometimes it creates more work for you.
Yeah.
Than is necessary. Like when you get into programming, especially, hey, I'm writing this in this language, you do it for me, whatever, ChatGPT or Gemini or Llama, whoever. And they spit it out, and the code they give you doesn't work. It's like, hey, this doesn't work. And I see the mistake because I'm not going to ask it something about a language that I don't already know a little bit myself. I'm just saving on typing. You type it, then like, I don't think this is right. And then it'll do some magic workaround with it. And, you'll do that 5 or 6 times. Okay, now do this, now do that. And they've created this monstrosity of code that's a whole bunch of lines long. That's a big circle around. Hey, you could have just write one little line of code to have done the thing. And we spent half an hour asking it all these questions to generate this code,
going back and forth. Yeah,
right. And I do think if we rely on it too much, it's going to actually harm us as far as workflow and efficiency. I don't worry about folks our age too much. I worry about younger kids that are going to grow up relying on this stuff and not knowing how to do anything without these tools.
Yeah. Let me give you an example on how I use it. Neovim plugins, right? Lua, right? Because I'm not like a Lua programmer. I don't know a lot about Lua. So I have needed to create a lot of plugins. I do know programming in other languages. It's pretty similar, So I know, functions, variables, all that stuff. I know what's supposed to happen and all that, but I don't know the language itself, right? So I just tell it, write this. But then I have to be telling it, why did you do this? Do this instead. And it gives you something. Test it, doesn't run, go back. Why did you do this? So it's back and forth, back and forth. So it has helped me a lot, writing stuff that I don't care too much about. My key maps, I just want them to work. I don't care if the code is not optimal, because it's not something that I need to be, 100% professional.
It doesn't have to look pretty, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it gets the job done, but it does require some iterations when what you're trying to do is not like mission critical, we would say, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Are you one of these people that fear AI? Like some people have a legitimate fear that is going to destroy all of humanity one day.
I don't, because it's really dumb, but I see that it's improving. Yeah. But it's feeding back on its own information. So I don't know if it's going to get dumber or if, I don't know, there's going to be a breakthrough and it's going to get really good eventually.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Right now, it is kind of broken software, like it's riddled with bugs, right? All software is. It's human generated. And because we generated AI, we produced AI, it's as flawed as we are. Like it's not going to be any better than we are. But it is interesting.
I think it's a tool. It's like a calculator, right? I don't remember what the dots were when calculators, scientific calculators.
That's an interesting question because, calculators have not been around that long. You can find people old enough probably to answer that question. I've never asked anybody that. Hey, what'd you think about the calculator? But yeah, that would be interesting.
Tool, basically, right? So it's just going to make your life easier. It's up to you how you use it. People that didn't have too much knowledge about front-end design can now come up with something quick. It's not going to be professional and 100% great, but it's going to allow you to move faster if you don't know certain domains. So I think it's just a tool that helps you, become better at certain things.
Yeah, for me, the one thing I do like about AI is the fact that it's so badly wrong so much of the time is it does help reinforce in people's minds, hey, don't trust anything you read on the internet. Like, because a lot of people before AI, there are so many people, I've got family members that will tell me some ridiculous thing. It's obviously not true. It's like, where in the hell did you hear that? It's on Facebook. Oh, well, it must be true then. Somebody typed it on Facebook, right? And now with these AI tools, and, there was an article I read a few months back. I think I made a video about it, where there was a problem with Google's Gemini giving like dangerous information. Like, hey, Gemini, give me a pizza recipe. And for the sauce, they recommended adding in glue, Elmer's glue. Like a bunch of it. Like, hey, put a cup of glue in your pizza sauce.
Imagine if there's trolls that dedicate their time to giving
Yeah.
wrong data to the
Right.
AI. You know, how
Well,
can
that's
you
that's
trust
the
it?
reason it answered this is because it found a funny post on Reddit
Uh-huh.
where somebody answered it that way, and they thought that was a real answer and not a joke. So that's why they give the pizza recipe that way. Same thing. There was somebody that asked them for a good spaghetti sauce recipe, a red sauce. They said, if you want a spicy red sauce, add a little gasoline to it.
It's gonna be spicy.
Yeah, but so yeah, obviously you can't trust anything on the internet, period. But you definitely can't trust these AI tools. And the people that are asking it like health related questions and things like that. No, absolutely not. Right.
Yeah. I tend to ask questions that I can test, something that I can, test myself. If it's going to give me an answer, I can test right away and confirm that it actually works and that it's true. But I'm not going to ask for general advice, life advice.
I think it's perfectly okay to ask it about things you know about.
Yeah.
But if it's something you know nothing about,
oh yeah,
that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Like I can tell it, hey, write me a bash script that does this. And if it gives me some crazy code that's dangerous, I know what you're doing there. Right?
Yeah.
But if I tell it, hey, write me some Lua, I don't know any Lua. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like networking as well. I needed to do some homework, networking related stuff, and just, hey, give me the configuration for this router, these interfaces, these routing protocols, stuff like that. Right. I know what it has to give out. I don't want to type it myself, so I just read it and I just, okay, that's good, copy paste, so if you know what you're doing, it's an awesome tool.
Well, Christian, I think that's about it for tech-related questions I had for you. Are there any projects that you're working on? Anything you want to share? Obviously, you have your YouTube channel. You work on any kind of software projects or just anything you want to share with the audience?
Not at the moment. The only thing that I have been working on, I started working on my NeoVim config and I haven't stopped. When I stop with that, I will start working on projects. Yeah. I'm just kidding. But no, I don't have any projects at the moment.
Well, do you share your dot files?
Yep. Okay. I have my dot files, so I'm just going to share them with you.
GitHub?
Yep. I do have them on GitHub.
Well,
I'll share them with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll obviously post all your information in the show description. So I'll give them the link to your YouTube, your GitHub, any other social media links that you want to share. I don't know if you hang out on social media. I know you've messaged me on Mastodon, and I have a Mastodon account. I barely use it. I really avoid social media altogether. Mm-hmm. I had a Twitter account and a Facebook account about 8-10 years ago, and I deleted them way back then because I realized this is not the place to be. Right? That's like, especially Twitter. Twitter was so bad. It's nothing but people arguing all negative the time. I got to get away from all that. So,
you know what happened to me recently? I had Twitter, I had Instagram, TikTok, Threads, LinkedIn.
Oh, you had it all.
All of them. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I just got tired of it, 5 days ago, and I uninstalled each one of them. I even uninstalled the YouTube analytics thing because I was, my days were like this, jumping between each one of the apps, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and then the cycle would start all over again and you spend 4 hours. And I was like, man, I wish I was as productive as when I was doing my networking stuff. I used to grab a book, 800-page book, read through it, take notes. I cannot do that right now with social media. So I just uninstalled everything. I was this close to uninstall WhatsApp as well, but me and my wife use it to communicate. I told her, just send me SMS messages. And she was like, no. And job related stuff, that's why I keep WhatsApp, but I just uninstalled everything else. And you cannot, personally, I'm just talking about myself here, I cannot grow professionally if I have all those social media distractions.
Yeah. And for me, it was, I didn't want to turn into the people that I was seeing. Like I had people that I was working with. I'm sitting there holding a conversation with somebody and he's sitting there staring at his phone, looking at Facebook. Like, what, dude, what the hell are you doing? Or you're at dinner with somebody and they, I just got a tweet. And it's like, well, let's stop eating so you can read your tweet, right?
Yeah.
Hell, I don't even, when people email me, sometimes it may take a few hours before I respond because most things do not require a response in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like some people really think they have to respond to everything. I tell developers this all the time as far as people working on software. They have their projects on something like GitHub or GitLab and they get, support requests and things. And they feel like they have to go immediately respond to that. And I can understand why people feel like they need to do that. But at the same time, when you don't immediately jump into something, it forces that person asking the support request to do some research on their own.
And figure it out.
Most of the time, if you give it, I tell people this, if you give it 24 hours, most of the time when you come back to that, they've already figured out the problem. And then you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
A little hack.
Yeah.
A GitHub hack, right? All right. Where can people find you other than YouTube? Is that the only social media essentially you use these days is YouTube?
I still post everywhere else because I have a tool that I log in, a platform that I log in and I share a post and it shares it everywhere. So I share it in Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. So in my YouTube, I have links to everything. There's my Discord and my other social media links. So if you go to my YouTube, you'll be able to find all the stuff there. I may not reply as fast if you send me a message in Twitter, for example, because I log into Twitter now once every 3 days, or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I'm the same way. If it comes via email, I'm much quicker to respond. If it comes through
via email,
like a private message on Reddit, you may never get a response. It's so rare that I check that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Christian, this was a great discussion. Thank you for hanging out with me. And, as far as Linux and Mac users, I think we have shown that we can all get along, right? We're not so different.
Yeah.
For the most part.
At
least we're not Windows.
Your audience, I'm interested in seeing what your audience is going to say about this. Like, I'm a sellout for sure, because I'm not on the Linux side of things. So I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen.
You are using a Unix-like operating system, though. So as long as you've got the shell and some shell utilities, you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, man, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is definitely going to help my channel. Well, I don't know if it's going to help it or not because your users are on Linux users, but maybe some of them want to try macOS.
Go easy on him, guys, right?
Yeah.
All right, Christian, take care. Peace.
Thanks, DT. Bye.